Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Whole Elephant. I'm glad that you're here today listening to this episode because it's a very, very important episode. My guests today are Alan Smyth and Jessica Midkiff. They work for a company or an organization called Saving Innocence. And Saving Innocence works to rescue children from sex trafficking in Los Angeles. Such an important discussion that is hard to talk about, but something we need to talk about. Not just in LA, globally. Whatever city you're listening in today, this is an important conversation for you. There's going to be lots of talk about a book they have coming out, and I highly recommend checking out that book. And also figuring out ways, especially you're in LA, to support Saving Innocence. So sit back, enjoy the chat. Alan and Jessica, thank you for joining me. Welcome to The Whole Elephant. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing good. First of all, I think we got to start with congratulations. Putting out a book, I have found, is no small task. So first of all, congrats on putting out a book. This is a really, really big deal. What inspired you to write this book? Why did this book come about?
Well, I'll start off and then Jess can chime in with how she got involved and why she got involved. It started out, well, first of all, the title is Men, ! Fight for me. And those were words that I heard a survivor friend of ours say. She didn't say men, but she said, I was being exploited, and for 5 months, I was kicking and screaming, trying to figure out a way to get out of this exploitation, this human trafficking. I began to believe all the lies that were being told to me, and I gave up. And she said this, I could no longer fight for myself. I needed someone to fight for me. And that sort of lit a fire in my belly, like, okay, she just told me that there's a bunch of survivors of trafficking out there that don't want to be doing it. They want to get out, but they've literally given up because they saw no way of escape. And so that sort of fired me up. Had a few people say, you should write a book on that. That's pretty powerful. And then later on, we added the word men to the title. She didn't say men fight for me. She said I needed someone to fight for me. But the target audience is men. Because the other thing that I've learned while working at Saving Innocence, I know we'll talk about that in a little bit here, is that the biggest part of this problem of human trafficking and exploitation is caused by men. Most of the buyers are men. Most of the sellers are men. Men are the problem. It's indisputable. And so anytime I would go anywhere, any kind of a training or some kind of a meeting of some kind, there'd be almost no men there. And this is really frustrating me. It's like, okay, this is not a good look. Men are the problem, and there's no men as part of the solution. Right. So our book consultant that we worked with said, add men to the title, because that's who you're trying to grab the attention of. When people search for book in men's things, it'll pop up. And then I approached Jessica. I'll let Jess answer why she got involved and how she got involved with the book.
Well, you were doing so great, to be honest. Hi. Basically, Alan approached me, with coming on and co-authoring with him for this book. And in the past, I've been asked to write books with a few different people, and it's nothing against them, but it just didn't feel like the right time. And Alan came to me, and him and I have had a really good rapport over so many years now. And I trust him completely and wholeheartedly. And I know he's a super excellent, authentic, amazing man. He is definitely one of my safe guys. And I was like, I'm going to do this. It just hit me. And it was like, this is right. This is the message, I want to be a part of. This is where I want to, throw my hat in the ring. This is it. And so it's a huge passion project for Alan, but it really is a passion project for me, because I do believe that men are a really huge part of the problem. And we do have some men that are on the fighting side, but not a lot. So, this is something that I think is going to be super encouraging to men. And, ladies, if they pick up the book, it's a great read for ladies, but also they can give it to their brothers, their uncles, their friends, their whomever. So, I think this is literally the only book of its kind. And I'm just really, really happy. And I feel blessed to really be a part of it. So
Awesome. And I just want to make sure they can buy a copy for all those people, not hand the same one out.
that part, exactly. We want them to buy and have their own copy for sure.
Yes, everyone needs their own copy of this book.
It might be notable, Eric, since you brought it up, is that
Yeah.
the way we structured it, the majority of any possible revenues will be going to different survivors of sex trafficking. And there's a handful of really notable, amazing women that have offered their story and their input, and everybody gets a piece of the action. So we do want everyone to buy this book because of the message, but also because the proceeds will be going in a great spot.
Awesome. I want to start off here talking about the scope of the problem. It seems to me like it's something that kind of lives in the shadows. It's not something that you drive down the street and you can see the problem firsthand. So can you give me a sense of worldwide, in the US and in LA, the scope of the problem that we're talking about here?
Yeah, well, and that was what you just said. That would depend on which street you drive on, whether or not you see it or not. And we'll get to that in a minute. There's a few commonly known what they call tracks, where it's very, very visible now more than ever, which is heartbreaking. Maybe I'll stop. I'll talk a little bit about the bigger picture, and then Jessica, you can offer some of your knowledge on the close-up picture. So the people that count things would say there's some 40 million or more people enslaved via human trafficking right now worldwide. And the IJM, the International Justice Mission, does a lot of great work. And that's a number that they produce 40 or 45 million, which is just a ridiculous number. These are actual slaves. It's referred to as the modern day slavery. We all learned in junior high and high school about the sort of the traditional slavery, the transatlantic slave trade. So we would have thought that our society as humanity would have progressed in such an egregious crime. We've actually regressed. And again, all the people that count all the stuff will say there's more people enslaved now than at any time in human history. The human trafficking business model, if you will, and that's what it is. It's an economically driven crime perpetrated on vulnerable people who have a number of vulnerabilities that are exploited. And it's just purely a exchange of cash for services, if I can be so crass. So 45 million worldwide. Here in this country, it's estimated, and first of all, it's hard to know exactly how many because the crime does exist in the shadows, quite a bit. But it's estimated there's some 300,000 or maybe more children, minors, being trafficked for sex in our country. And these are predominantly American-born U.S. citizens. These aren't kids being shipped in from another country. There is kind of a crisis happening on our southern border of our country right now, and there are minors being trafficked in for sure. But the bulk of the sort of availability of vulnerable kids in our country is overwhelming, and so they don't need to work hard at kind of bringing kids in across the border because they're all right here. Jessica, what would you say about kind of the local, in our city and our country, problem of human trafficking?
It's with that, it's something great that you said that's really so popular nowadays that you said earlier, Eric, is that it's not something that you could like readily see, like, but the thing is you actually can. It's just the kids and the people that are being exploited have been trained to hide in plain sight. And that's really what, I think people are slowly starting to understand is like, even if you see a kid with jeans and a sweatshirt and a backpack on with some tennis shoes, they may be lingering at a bus stop or, walking in like, in the four corners and they keep walking the same pattern or the same path. You would think passing by, oh, it's a kid walking from school or going to the library or going to a friend's house. But in all actuality, the kid is out there being trafficked and being exploited. We just don't know. And so exploiters have gotten really savvy. And then you have some that just put their girls out there, dressed in the typical way that you might think of when you look at a TV show, shorts or skirt and high heels, whatever. It changes. But for those that are underage, it looks a little different a lot of times. So that's just the biggest thing is understanding that it's hiding in plain sight. You would never know sometimes by just even standing next to a person. That's the beauty of it. That's the art of it. So.
And then what is are there numbers for here in Southern California, in LA, the scope of the problem here?
Yeah, LA County did a campaign a couple of years ago, and the number that they determined was 10,000 in Southern California. People being trafficked right here. We worked with the state of Texas a couple of years ago. The state of Texas, the governor's office came and met with us and said, when I say us, I mean Saving Innocence and the team there that are heading up this work in LA. And they said, we have a big problem. We've determined we have 90,000 children being trafficked in the state of Texas between all the major cities. Can you help us and educate us? So we actually went there, moved there for a year and a half, and went back and forth to help them. So 90,000 in Texas, you could just kind of do the math, and the 300,000 number seems very realistic when you start adding up, the other kinds of cities. LA is always the leader in everything, good and bad. You start factoring Miami and New York and the Bay Area, and it's everywhere, but in the major cities is where it's mostly concentrated. So it's a pretty big number.
You said that these are kids that have different vulnerabilities that they're able to prey on. What are those vulnerabilities? Are there common stories? What are the contributing factors that would make a kid vulnerable to this process?
Oh, where do I begin? I think just to start out on a really general stand is that just being a kid or being a human being in this country or in this world, that's just number one. The vulnerabilities, people look for, like foster care is a really big one that we've been seeing a lot of, especially doing the work, because there are no real stable roots for the child. And so this exploiter has a chance to come in and say, hey, I'll be your dad. I'll be your family. I'll be your protector. I'll take care of you. And that sounds so good to a kid that is coming from an environment where there's no real family support. And then you also have kids that are at home that may have both their parents or an aunt and uncle, a grandparent, but being a latchkey kid, right? So years ago, that wasn't a huge vulnerability, but that stands to be a really huge one now today. Having access to the internet, coming from a background of abuse, coming from a background where, you spend the majority of your time by yourself, wanting to hang out with friends. The sky is the limit, right? But if we talk about kids that come from where I come from in the inner city, there's a high level of violence, out in the streets and sometimes even in the home. The fact that there may not be parents around or a parent around, you'll see a lot of drugs, a lot of gang activity. There's just so many things that make a child, especially coming from those areas, really open to falling into the hands of someone that means them no good. And that's what they're really preying on, is that vulnerability. What is it that they need so I can get what I want? And a lot of times people think that the exploiters are not that smart, but they really are. A lot of times they're at least a few steps ahead of us that are really trying to help these kids. They're just really good at what they do. And a lot of times too, they build a romantic relationship with the child, because what kid doesn't want to be in love, right? Just looking at it from a regular standpoint of view, everybody wants to be in love, whether they say it or not. Everybody wants a partner, a companion. Everybody wants a friendship, especially a child that's growing up. They want friends. They want to be accepted. That's just a part of being. Right. And the exploiters will use those regular everyday things to turn the vulnerability into what they would like to call a weakness in order to get the kid, which we know that it's not a weakness. So,
yeah. I was a couple episodes ago, I was talking to my friend Brock Morgan, who works with junior high kids, and he said you can actually track an increase of teen suicides with the invention of the iPhone. Do you think it's the same in this realm, that the phones having the internet readily available for these kids has increased the problems for you guys?
Oh yeah. Oh.
It's absolutely a disaster. I mean, the 21st century technology with the iPhone is phenomenal. You got the world at your fingertips, but in those same 2 seconds, you're in absolute danger and peril. And parents absolutely need to fully engage in what their kids are doing on their iPhone, on their smartphone. It's been coined the 21st century brothel, because the technology is so powerful And there are traffickers and exploiters out there that are literally putting up children for sale on different apps and different websites. You know, like you might log on to an app because you want to buy a used barbecue or put for sale your lawn furniture or something like that. You can go to certain places, not going to mention them here, but you can go to certain places and say, let's see, I would like an Asian girl or a black girl. I would like someone young or really young or not so young. Like you can just, all the filters, it's absolutely hideous and insidious what's going on. The FBI told us recently that they estimate some 900,000 predators online at any given time.
Wow.
So you think about, you know, a parent raising kids. Eric, I know you have some little ones in the house. I'm not sure how old they are, but, you know, they're probably dabbling with the internet a little bit and maybe video games where the kind where you're on live talking to other people playing the video game against it. And there's a good million people out there that mean your children harm. They're trying to lure your child into a place that is dangerous and maybe even worse. So,
yeah, no, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and it's crazy, even with her little kids' games, how vigilant you have to be. And who are you playing against in these games? Are you playing the computer or a real person? And is there a chat? And it's crazy, even that young, how vigilant you have to be as a parent, for sure. I want to talk about Saving Innocence and how you guys got involved. Just as a broad statement, does Saving Innocence exist because this is a problem that is too large for law enforcement?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know that I would say it that way. We partner with law enforcement and we do things they can't do and don't do, and they do things we can't do and don't do. So there's a very good partnership. Wow. Why do we exist? That's a deep question. We have written down somewhere we exist to protect human worth. And we're growing up in a society, raising our kids in a society that largely doesn't value humanity and human worth. And this is the worst possible example of that, of another human owning another human and then selling them for the purposes of sex. Yeah. So no, I don't think.
How did you find out about it, and how did you get involved?
Well, I was on the Young Life staff for 25 years. And in about year 24, I heard about Saving Innocence. One of our staff women that actually was in Hollywood at the time came to me and said, we have to start Young Life for inside Saving Innocence. I said, what's that? She said, they're working with child victims of sex trafficking. And I, like 99% of every other person, said, oh, you mean they're in Thailand or someplace? No, right here in Los Angeles. What? Child victims of sex trafficking? What does that even mean? And then it kind of, we didn't really talk about it that much. I said, I'm in, whatever that means, and we just never quite made any headway there. And then in year 25, it was time to step aside, and I stepped away from Young Life, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. But this thing about child victims of sex trafficking at Saving Innocence didn't leave my mind. I'm a dad with a daughter. I have a son also, but more of the victims are little girls than little boys. And I thought, I'm just going to cold call Saving Innocence and see what they're doing. So I did. Met with the founder, and I was in immediately. They weren't looking for a job. They hadn't posted anything. They didn't have any money to do anything extra. There was no thought of hiring anyone at that point. And so we started this conversation. Tell me more about this thing that's happening. And I was immediately captured, and I left the day and I said, well, I'll at least be a little donor. So I'm counting me in, but let's keep talking. I'd like to see where this goes. And after a couple of months, they offered me a job to come to Saving Innocence. And here I am 6 years later, almost 6 years later.
Awesome. Can you tell me about the process? What does Saving Innocence do?
What does Saving Innocence do? We're contracted by LA County through the Department of Children and Family Services to be first responder advocates. So what the powers to be realized early on, that these kids who have been trafficked have a different level of trauma than your basic foster kid or your basic kid that maybe has had some sort of problem and they interacted with law enforcement. For the longest time, they were treating trafficked kids in the same way because they didn't understand the difference. And they realized if this child's going to have a chance at success at recovering, this little girl, mostly little girls, needs to have someone who's there, their champion, joined at the hip, cheering them on, making a way, being a blocker for the people that maybe don't understand them, who aren't using the correct language, getting them everything we need. We have the unique position where when we show up, we don't want anything from these kids. We literally are just there to bring value add. We're there to help. What do you need? What can we help you with? What problems are you having? And we're her advocate, her cheerleader, her protector, and inside a system that's hard to deal with and hard to navigate. And not everybody in that system necessarily understands what's happening. So that's the basic part that we do. And it looks like us responding in the middle of the night around the clock. We've got this team of rockstar advocates that are on call. And we show up in the middle of the night when the cops recover somebody that they think is a trafficking victim. We show up at all hours and then step into that relationship. And then we walk with her as long as it takes to get her back on her feet, get her in the process of healing, get her back into school, and all the things in between that she needs. And then Jessica plays an important role. Jess, tell us what Saving Innocence does and what you've done with Saving Innocence along the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. So I basically started out as a survivor advocate for Saving Innocence, where I did a lot of the one-on-one direct services with the kids, and me being an advocate and working alongside the case managers, we kind of just, worked with each kid as they came together. And then I moved eventually into client resources, where I wasn't so much out in the field, but I was based in the office, and I would get the kids their basic needs. They would come to the office. We'd have conversations, just about, regular everyday stuff and how to a place to be safe and be comfortable. I was there. And then I've moved into recently development. So I'm learning that whole piece and just like how everything keeps going and, what we can do to better help the kids like every day. I've been in this work for a really, really long time, even before Saving Innocence. And a lot of it was direct services, which I love. But I've been able to really get in and help from different aspects, which is really nice. And the kids actually get to see me in different positions as well, because we all know that when kids see us doing things, they want to do what we do. So on top of that, me being a survivor, they're like, oh, well, I can do that too. And so we have kids that are like, hey, Jess, how did you get into this? And, it just inspires them, or a light clicks or whatever. And, they start asking questions about, how they can do what I do. So I just love my job.
That's awesome. You said that there's a lot of sort of this game of brainwashing going on, that they're making them feel like they're in love with them. There's this love relationship or a deep friendship relationship. When a victim comes to you, do they feel like they're being rescued, or do they feel like you are taking them from the love of their life, or is there a mixed bag of both?
There's a mixed bag of everything. So the things that you mentioned and other things too. So, sometimes we have kids where they do feel as though they've been rescued, but, we always stand firm in saying, we didn't rescue you, you rescued yourself, because we want to empower them. We want to put the power back into them. And then part of it too is they may look at us and say, like, you're taking me away from this, I'm totally fine. And that's like a stage of change thing. So if we get a kid that's pre-contemplative, that's like, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing, it's because the brainwashing has successfully downloaded. This kid is like totally programmed, and it takes a while. But even if they're in that moment, if they're in that stage of their exploitation, we still walk with them. And then they start seeing over time, oh, you really just want to be here for me. And so, we get a lot of love, hate, anger, sadness, confusion, happiness. We get every emotion you could possibly think of. But the beautiful thing about what we do is we're going to take it all and we're going to work through this together. And a lot of times our kids, after a certain amount of time, they kind of transition into that other stage in their life where it's like, well, they start finding out, well, he lied to me, or this wasn't what I thought it was. So it's just like taking time, right? And really being there and embracing the child as much as possible and loving them and caring for them through every stage that they need to go through in order to get back to that, for lack of better words, healthier side of life. I hope that
right. No, that's a great answer. I would imagine you see the same kids multiple times, that they go back and then they get cops pick them up again or whatever. And like you said, it's a process. I would guess that the process doesn't always work out well. How do you guys carry the weight of that? How do you walk into not only, stories that maybe don't turn out well, but just you're walking every day into an environment that is dark? How do you handle that every day? How do you carry that weight?
I think part of it, for a really long time, I've been doing the work over 10 years now. I think a part of it, what I've come to realize is like, yeah, you go in and you love these kids and you're invested. Like, we are all invested in our kids. Um, but part of it is sometimes you have to step back and kind of evaluate the situation. We support each other heavily. We're like a family at Saving Innocence. So it's like a whole bunch of sisters and brothers. And, the kids see that too. But sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes we do lose a child. Sometimes the worst of the worst happens. And we all deal with it the best way we can. I can't speak for everyone. But we just continue to try to keep moving and try to keep working and fighting for the kids. And knowing that, nothing's 100%, nothing's perfect. And we know that. So we try to prepare as much as we can. But when we do lose a kid, it's never easy. And it's a process for us too. We're still human, but the best thing we can do and what we really hold on to is loving the kids and being there no matter what. And knowing that the problem is a lot bigger than just us. So I hope that answered your question.
No, totally.
Eric,
Alan, same question. How do you get through it? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was going to say our clinical supervisor who oversees the case managers and all that work said it to me and kind of made sense to me. She said, our advocates are walking around at all times with half a broken heart. Like not a full broken heart, because there are some victories and joys along the way to see this child, pull out, but it's half a broken heart at all times. It's like, wow. These heroes and these rock stars are literally willingly, intentionally walking into the deepest and darkest pain you can imagine perpetrated on children. For me personally, I'm not the person that's walking with those kids, maybe for all the obvious reasons. I'm not the one. I get to know a few of them along the way, that are at our office at some kind of event, but I'm not the one that's looking in their eyes, 8 hours a day, hearing the hardest thing imaginable. But, there are some stories that bubble up and I hear them. And, there's a sleepless night now and then that I'm kind of fighting through. And just about the time when I'm feeling sorry for myself, and boy, this is hard, then I think, okay, you punk, all these amazing survivors that I've gotten to know, that I've heard their stories and what these kids are going through, and you're going to complain? Get out of here. So, I don't know. I'll probably be in, detox therapy rehab at some point because I don't let myself deal with it all. But it's definitely a difficult thing. About a month ago, we actually had a memorial service, and for the Saving Innocence staff and a number of our county partners, and we were memorializing 15 of our kids that had passed away over a little period of time, and about 10 of them over the last year and a half. And these kids become like little sisters or daughters in a way to our staff who are pouring so much into them. And none of them are passing away in a pleasant circumstance, and none of them at the right time. It's all difficult, hard situations. And so it takes a toll on our staff for sure, but we do the best we can to take care of everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you guys are doing hero work, whether, you're willing to say that or not. I'll say it for you. You're doing hero work. I want to make sure that we're very clear on this podcast how people can get involved, because once you hear about it, you can't unhear it. And if people want to get involved, what's the best way to partner? I guess my first question is, because you both mentioned that it is something that we see in plain sight and don't know. Are there things we should be looking for? Are there things that the everyday person driving around can be noticing, can be aware of?
I think the best thing the everyday person can do, if they're a parent, is to zero in on their own children and zero in on the technology that's in your house and the phones and make sure your kids and your people that are close to you are safe and protected in that way. We actually wouldn't encourage the public to engage, in some kind of vigilante justice or something.
Sure.
It would put the girls out there at risk, because then the trafficker might think that his girl that he's owning and directing somehow brought that on, and that would be bad for her. So we don't ask that the public would engage. If they think they see something, call 911 and let law enforcement do it.
Sure.
We don't want them getting hurt either. Let's just put that out there.
Sure.
And folk that have nothing to, we don't want them to get hurt as well. So along with the kids, but it's for their own safety too. Right. And we can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
Right. As far as Saving Innocence, how can people get involved and partner with what you guys are doing?
That's a great question. Go to savinginnocence.org, our website, and that's be stop number one to start the process. If you're just getting started, there's 5 or 6 videos posted in and around that website. Watch every one of them. There's some infographics. Begin to learn more about what's happening here. And if you've already heard enough, I mean, this isn't a fundraising podcast, but hit the donate button to become a monthly donor at whatever amount is the right amount for you. And maybe just a little bit more than that. And that'd be a huge way to partner. Another really great way. A lot of people have said, well, sure, I'll give you money. That's easy. But what else do you need? And so if you send an email to info@savinginnocence.org, our events and volunteer manager will get that and say, I want to help. What do you need? And depending on what time of the year it is, like right now, we have high school graduations that we're going to be throwing a big party for in July. And so we build these kind of going to college baskets and fill it full of a bunch of great stuff that they're going to need to go away to school. And we buy them the college sweatshirt of their dream school, even the one they're going to or the one that they are thinking about. And so we just need the public to jump and say, I'm going to help you. Let me build one of those baskets for you. And we'll tell them, what we need. And there's birthday parties and baby showers throughout the year that we're celebrating these kids with, and Christmas party in December. So there's lots of ways that somebody could get involved other than just giving money. Sure, give us money. We need it. But beyond that, we'd love to have you involved, volunteering some of your time and effort as well that way.
Awesome. And tell me about the book. It has just been released. It's available now. Where can people find out about the book and pick it up?
That's a great question. Fightforme.net is a website that we have built, that the book is going to live there. It's available to buy it on Amazon or where books are sold, but it's easy link is right on fightforme.net. And in addition to that, there's a lot of resources that are there. There's a lot of blogs. Jessica and I have filmed a bunch of video blogs with all the various contributors of the book, and they're posted there, just talking about unpacking, taking a deep dive into the various chapters of the book. And so, yeah, it's a phenomenal, I can say it humbly speaking, I wrote some of it, but most of the deep content really came from Jessica. And there's 5 or 6 other really phenomenal survivors that have offered their story. And the basic sense of it is my male voice challenging men to look at this, engage, live differently. And we break down, for the sake of the kind of most guys and most people, but most men don't know that much about it. So there's a whole chapter on the traffickers. What's going on? Who are the traffickers? What are they doing? The whole chapter on the buyers. Who's buying sex? Who are they? What's going on there? Who are the victims? Who are these people? We're kind of breaking it down. And there's some man-to-man real talk where I'm talking man-to-man with, okay, guys, challenging them in that way, in a better way. And, there's a lot of things in there that are, I think, going to be really helpful if we can get enough people's eyes on this. We're hoping it's going to make a big difference. And we think that it will, if we can get enough people to look at it. Fightforme.net. Jessica, go ahead. I don't want to take all that time. What do you want to say about the book?
You did perfect. I'm really excited. You can take all the time you want, Alan. No, everything you said was true to form. And I really do hope and I really, really hope that people do get out and buy it and really do read it and encourage others to, do the same. Because being a survivor and having so many eyes on this topic and reading this book, I feel like it's going to reach so many kids in so many different and healthy ways. So I'm really pumped about this book. This is the first time I think I've ever jumped on something like this. I don't know. I'm just really excited. So go to fightforme.net, pick up your copy. Don't be left out. So, and yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. I just want to kind of end with this. You guys are it feels the problem feels insurmountable, right? And you're attacking it on two ends. You're attacking it from with law enforcement dealing with the traffickers, trying to make arrests, do those things. They're doing that side of it. With this book, you're attacking it from maybe the buyer standpoint, right? And you're attacking it from who is causing this to even be a commodity that is, that people are exploiting. What is your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What would be a benchmark that you would like to see happen here and across the world, I guess?
Well, I mean, what's the name of this podcast? The Whole Elephant
The
podcast?
Whole Elephant, yeah.
I mean, I keep hearing people say things like, we want to see the end of trafficking in my lifetime. Like, that's a thing, in my lifetime. It's like, okay, that's cool. I can sign off on that. But there's a lot of time between now and the end of someone's lifetime, hopefully. And every single night is a 911 crisis emergency where a child is literally being raped a dozen or more times by a grown man. That has to stop right now. And so it may sound a little idealistic, if you will, but my goal isn't to reduce child trafficking or human trafficking. My goal isn't to kind of curtail it a little bit. It's complete abolishment. It's a total elimination. It literally cannot go on one more day. And there's a good dozen or so action items in the book in chapter 8 where we talk about conclusions and solutions. And I believe if enough people grabbed onto those, we'll make a serious dent in this. Ultimately, we're going to need a revolution of men, of good men, to stand up and say, not on my watch. We have the power. Those of you men that are listening to this, we literally have the power to stop this, to end it right now. But it's going to take all of us to get up, get off the couch, take a stand. The great Colonel Nathan Jessup from A Few Good Men would say, pick up a weapon and stand a post. If we don't do that, it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
If we get enough guys to do it, it will go away. And that's the goal, to make it go away. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but one more day is too long.
Yeah.
Jessica, do you have anything to add?
What do I hope to see? I hope to see like togetherness and unity. I hope to see this like fortified front of strong, healthy, masculine men standing up for what's right. I hope to not see another child be abused in any type of way and people think that it's okay or it's her or his choice, but it's complete circumstance. I just want to see a better place for, our children and our children's children and so on, and just keep going. And the same thing that Alan wants, for it to just be completely gone. And, people will say, oh, well, it's the oldest, career in the book or whatever they would say, but it's not a career. It's not a choice. This is a forceful thing. This is modern day slavery, and children are innocent. And innocent children grow into awesome adults. And we don't want to rob kids of that moment. We don't want to rob kids of being kids and being able to grow into healthy adults. So just really unity, happy family, strong, healthy, masculine men, I'm going to say again. And just hopefully we can move on to something else and abolish something else next. So, yeah.
Eric, it gets real for us dads. It got real for me when I learned about this as a dad of a daughter. Now, when I learned about it, my daughter was well into her 20s and probably easing out of that vulnerable stage, if you will. This is going to get real for you, Eric. A couple of years ago, we received our youngest client who was 7 years old. And you mentioned earlier, that's the age of your daughter. It's like, okay, can you literally imagine anything worse happening to your little girl?
No.
You can't think of anything worse. And so if we can get enough men to look at this, and women, but men are the problem, the biggest part of the problem. If we get enough men, okay, step one, look at it, embrace it, understand it. And then while you're having sleepless nights and you have an upset stomach and your heart is pulverized, take that pulverized heart, marinate on it, and let it move you into action. We have too many men, weak, passive men, sitting on the couch, watching the world go by, building the kingdom of self. We need more strong men to get up off the couch and go do something about this. I can't imagine anything worse in humanity right now. Great. Sign me up. What do you need me to do? That's what we need. We need hundreds of thousands, millions of men to say, I'm in. Now what? we want to have that conversation. And this book is a good starting point to have the conversation.
I think that's the ending point right there. I mean, I don't think you could have said it any better. That's a mic drop moment. I'm not sure I could finish this podcast any better way. SavingInnocence.org. They can find all the information and getting involved there. Fightforme.net about the book. Pick up the book, buy multiple copies, give it to all of your friends and family, especially the men. Men is bold and red and has an exclamation point in the title. It is for us. Guys, you guys, like I said, you're doing hero work. I'm humbled by it and what you guys do every day. And I'm so thankful that you came on today to tell us about it. Go check out all the books, get everything, get all the information. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Thanks for having us. Glad to be here.